The summer of 1958, somewhere east of Revelstoke, in the Selkirk Mountains of British Columbia. The first shift is already working by the time the light clears the ridgeline above camp. A Cat D9 is on the rock cut, pushing broken granite off the bench edge into the valley below. The sound carries up the slope in the cold morning air, a hard mechanical percussion against the silence of the mountain. The blade is loaded. The treads are grinding. Diesel exhaust hangs in the gray light. Nobody is talking. There is nothing to say that the machine is not already saying. The cut runs for 147 kilometers, from Revelstoke to Golden, through the heart of Glacier National Park, over Rogers Pass at 1,330 meters, through terrain that defeated the Canadian Pacific Railway engineers who tried to hold a rail line here in the 1880s. The railway gave up this route in 1916. A tunnel under the mountains was cheaper than fighting the avalanches. The highway is not going under. The highway is going through. In the next 11 minutes, this is the story of how Canada cut the TransCanadaHighway through the most difficult mountain terrain on the route. The machines that did it, the conditions they worked in, the men who ran them, and what that 147 kilometers of finished road meant for a country that had been trying to connect itself for a generation. Before we go further, if this kind of history matters to you, consider subscribing to the channel. Every video here is built around real Canadian heavy equipment. The bulldozers, the excavators, the earth-moving operations, and the construction projects that shape this country. If that is worth documenting to you, the subscribe button is how you tell us, and we want to hear from you. Did you operate heavy equipment? A Cat, a Komatsu, a hydraulic excavator, a scraper, a demolition machine? Did a father or grandfather spend their career pushing dirt or running a shovel on Canadian construction sites?
Got it. See you tonight.
Did you grow up near a big project? A dam site? A highway build? An oil sands operation? Leave it in the comments. The people who actually ran these machines know things that do not appear in any equipment manual. We want to hear from them. Now back to the machine. But to understand what those machines were being asked to do, you have to understand why this section of highway had not been built already. Major A.B. Rogers discovered the pass in 1881, located the gap between the Sir Donald and Hermit ranges that allowed the Canadian Pacific Railway to push its transcontinental line west through the Selkirks. The rail line went through Rogers Pass starting in 1885. It was engineering of the first order for its era, and within 30 years the CPR was done with it. The avalanche problem was not manageable at scale. In the first 30 years of operation, the CPR built 31 snow sheds to protect the track, covered tunnels of timber and iron, some nearly a kilometer long, built to let snow slide over rather than across the line. They weren't enough. The pass received 10 meters of snow per year in a normal winter. The slides came anyway. In 1916, the CPR completed the Connaught Tunnel, 5 miles under the mountains, bypassing the worst of the pass entirely. The track over Rogers Pass was abandoned. The snow sheds fell apart. By 1949, the country had passed the TransCanadaHighway Act. By 1950, construction had begun on the rest of the route. But the Rogers Pass section, the hardest 147 kilometers, was left for last. Engineers surveyed the route. The decision was made to follow the abandoned CPR right-of-way over the pass. The avalanche problem was still there. It had not gone anywhere in 30 years. And now, instead of a railway, they were going to try to run a 2-lane national highway through it. Construction on the Rogers Pass section began in 1956 and ran 6 years. At any given time, the project supported around 500 workers spread across 4 construction camps. Radio reception was poor. Entertainment, movies, a haircut, required a train ride to the nearest town. All supplies came in by rail. The machines working the rock cuts were primarily Cat D8SS and D9S. The D9, in the production configuration deployed here, ran at 385 horsepower and weighed close to 47 tons. The blade was over 4 meters wide. Working a loaded push on a mountain cut, a D9 moved material weighing roughly 15 tons per pass. On a steep grade with shale and fractured granite underfoot, that is not raw horsepower doing the work. That is the operator reading the ground, when to push harder, as when to ease off before a track starts to break loose. Blast crews worked ahead of the dozers. The pattern was the same across the whole cut. Drill the face, load the charges, clear the area, fire, wait for the rock fall to settle. Bring the D9 in to push the broken material off the bench. Repeat. Every meter of the 147 kilometers was blasted before it was pushed. The grade specifications called for road alignment that followed the valley in tight curves, hairpin switchbacks in some sections, long bench cuts along cliff faces in others. The Cat 12 motor grader worked the finished surface, pulling grade stakes and shaping the running surface after the dozers had cleared the bulk material. 6 years, 147 kilometers. Through rock and snow and terrain that had turned back everything that tried to cross it before. The men who ran the D9s on the Rogers Pass cut came from across the Canadian construction trades. Some had come down from the dam sites, WAC. Bennett was under construction at the same time, pulling equipment and operators north to the Peace River Valley. The Rogers Pass job competed with that for experienced machine operators. The men who ended up on the mountain section were often younger, or they were veterans who specifically wanted rock work. The technical challenge of running a big dozer on a steep cut face rather than the long flat pushes on an earth-filled dam. Working a D9 on a grade is different from working it on flat ground. The machine wants to move in the direction of gravity. The operator is constantly managing that, using the blade load as a counterbalance on downhill cuts, letting the tracks find purchase on rock surfaces that shift under the machine's weight. That you do not learn to do that from a manual. The construction season at Rogers Pass was constrained by both ends. Spring breakup made the lower approaches impossible to work until the ground hardened. Autumn freeze-up shut the camps down before November. The effective working season was roughly 5 months, May through September. 6 years of 5-month seasons. And through the winter, the snow sheds that would protect the highway were being built alongside the cut. The workers who laid that concrete in November, before the season ended, were building the infrastructure that would allow the road they had just cut to stay open in January. They were building for conditions they had not yet lived through on this road. By 1961, the cut was finished. The road surface was in. The snow sheds were built, covered sections of highway where avalanche paths crossed the road, designed so that a slide would ride over the structure rather than onto the pavement. They were not small structures. Some ran for hundreds of meters. The road passed through them the way a railway once had, inside covered tunnels of reinforced concrete, with daylight visible at either end. On July 30th, 1962, BC Premier W.A.C. Bennett presided over a provincial opening ceremony. On September 3rd, Prime Minister John Diefenbaker dedicated the highway officially at a ceremony at Rogers Pass Summit. CBC cameras rolled. The world's longest national highway, 7,821 kilometers, was declared complete. The first commercial driver through the new Rogers Pass section was a D. Booth, a truck driver from Salmon Arm. He was carrying 264 crates of fresh BC strawberries to Calgary buyers. Before the highway existed, fruit like that took 3 days by rail. The highway got it there in time to sell. That was the practical measurement of what 6 years of rock work had built. Not the ceremony at the summit, not the Prime Minister's remarks. A truck driver with strawberries from Salmon Arm, making a run to Calgary that had never been possible by road before. That was the road. The Rogers Pass Highway has required management ever since. Within the first winter, it was clear that avalanche control was not a problem that the snow sheds alone could solve. Parks Canada and the Canadian Forces developed an active program, using 105mm howitzers to trigger controlled slides before they could release on their own. That program has been running for more than 50 years. The world's largest mobile avalanche control program, operating on the highway that 6 years of Cat D9 work carved through the Selkirks. The road proved its economic worth almost immediately. BC produced moving east, prairie goods moving west. families crossing the country by car instead of train. The tourism economy of the Canadian Mountain West opened in ways it had not been before. In 1988, the Mount Macdonald Tunnel was completed nearby, the CPR finally getting a second rail route through the Selkirks, almost directly through the mountain that the highway cuts around. The tunnel solved the rail capacity problem. The highway solved a different one. It connected Canada. The Cat D9s that worked the Rogers Pass cut are gone. The road is still there. It carries 4 million travelers per year through the same pass the CPR abandoned in 1916. The machine is gone now. The Cat D9s that pushed granite off the Rogers Pass bench for 6 years were working somewhere else by 1963. Different projects, different provinces, different cuts. That is the nature of construction equipment. It does not stay. The work stays. The road they opened in July of 1962 is still the TransCanadaHighway. Still the same alignment through the pass. Still the same curves the Dozers graded out of fractured Selkirk rock 60 years ago. Most of the people who drive through Rogers Pass today have never thought about how the road got there. They crossed the pass in 40 minutes. The blast crews and the D9 operators who built it spent 6 years. But somewhere, there is a logbook from one of those 4 camps. There is a foreman's survey note. There is a retired equipment operator who remembers which direction the cut was running on the morning his shift ended for the last time. The machines are gone. What they built is not. If this is the kind of Canadian construction history you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. There are more machines, more projects, and more stories still to document. And if you have a connection to what you just watched, a family member who worked a mountain highway build, a dam site, a resource road cut, tell us in the comments. What did they operate? Which project? What do you remember them saying about the work? The operators who built this country with heavy equipment did not get much recognition at the time. But the people who knew them remember exactly what they did. We want to hear from them.